Welcome back everyone, I'm Craven and this is Into Reverie, and yes, there is still a little bit more we're gonna do with this, because in the last episode I did mention whether or not we should read the other stories as well, and based on what you said and when I thought about it, I think if we want to make it complete, then yes, we're gonna read the other two stories, because there are gonna be three. We saw the picture of the daydream and there were three lines. One line is now present here for us reading the first story. There's gonna be two others. And I found it interesting because when I start up the game and I watched the intro once again, if you go all the way to the end of that intro video of Trails into Reverie and you see the Grandmaster, you see her holding three lines, which is exactly these lines we are seeing here. Is there a connection? I do not know, but I found that detail very interesting. Thus keeping it in mind, just in case. So, for now, let's go to an unconventional student. April, year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Aramis Academy is a famous educational institution in the Calvadian capital of Edith. The name derives from an artist central to Calvar's democratic revolution 100 years ago. This was also reflected in its goal of nurturing new talent and helping to forge a brighter future for a new republic. The academic placed great value on traditional education, of course, but it also encouraged the perspectives of new cultures and values, attracting many an independent mind from across Zemuria. It was a storied place of learning that reflected the Republic's views as a whole. This story, for its part, begins not long after the springtime festival held yearly to welcome the new student body. It was just another morning at the academy, countless students shuffling through its grounds, when one of them in particular happened to draw an unusual amount of attention. The young lady had long, soft violet hair crowned with a black ribbon. Her figure had been cut very respectably as she matured into a young woman of 17 years, and yet her face was still held traces of girlhood days bygone. The beauty she was, he never failed to turn inquisitive heads as he strolled along. I can already see that has to be Rean, right? Yeah, her name was Rean Bright. She was a second-year student from Yenna's Royal Academy in Liberal, now studying at Aramis as part of an exchange program. Yeah, and this in itself, because I already recorded my first episode of Daybreak as I came to a realization of reading these books, there was something in there that hinted to me that Rean might be there, and this confirms it. So this is for me all the reason why we should read both stories. So no more interruptions, let's continue. She had only just arrived in the spring. Rean's goal in attending was not to further her education. She had been considered highly gifted since she was a child, having already earned several doctorates in years past, and there was little more than a new academy could reasonably teach her. Her goal, in reality, was to use it as a front to operate freely in Calvard. It was hard to find one better than being a student. She already found the role relatively foolproof during her times at Janus. Even if there were limits to how much a student could get away with, society as a whole was soft on school children. To move freely would also require drawing as little attention as possible. She aimed to conduct herself modestly, as any young woman lady wished to remain unseen should during her time at Aramis. There was just one very big problem with this plan. Good morning, Miss Bright. Oh, isn't she just gorgeous? Look, I see her. Oh, she's so beautiful and everyone says she's just as smart too. All she had to do was walk down the hall to be showered with greetings and whispers of envy and admiration. Her looks alone were already enough to make her the talk of the school, but after one of the teachers let slip that she received perfect scores on her entrance exam, there was suddenly not a single person who didn't know her name. Yep, cover blown before even beginning. The other students cared not how much she wanted to avoid drawing attention. She was getting it, whether she liked it or not. Naturally, not everyone was pleased with the booming popularity this new transfer student had attained in less than a month. While most were busy fawning over Ren's arrival, that morning, another group watched the charade unfold from the shadows, echoing audible thoughts of displeasure. Ren had yet to be enrolled in any club, so as soon as the day's lesson had come to an end, she packed her belongings and stood up to leave. "A word, if I may, Miss Bryant?" It was a fellow classmate surrounded by a small faction of students clearly loyal to their king bee. Certainly, though instinct told her this was not going to be a conversation she wanted to have, she made the effort to pretend otherwise. She would not be provoked into behaving as anything but mature, modest young lady. "I've been wanting to get to know you better for some time now, you see, so I was wondering if you might join me for dinner this evening." The boy, Ronald Griffith, presented a gentlemanly smile. Ren was very much used to being asked out like this, and never once did she accept. She always made up some excuse to turn them down. Today would be no different. "Oh, I'm ever so sorry, but I'm afraid I have something urgent to take care of after school today. Some other time, perhaps." This was usually enough to get them to give up, but Ronald was a persisting one. "Well, that won't do. I have something very important to discuss with you, and I've already booked us a table at a very fine restaurant so we could discuss in detail. Is there really no way your business can wait?" There was something ominous about his smile. Ren couldn't help but be curious to what he was thinking. "I'm afraid it can't. I'm so sorry after you've gone out of your way to prepare ahead of time. Still, I could spare a little time now, so I'd be happy to talk of here if that's alright." "So, not tonight then. A pity." Ronald's tone read one less of genuine sadness and more irritation that things were not going according to plan. Well aware that he let slip his true feelings on the matter, he quickly composed himself and smiled. "Now is better than never, I suppose. This does concern everyone in the room, so perhaps it's all for the better set here." To this, Ren glanced around the room, noticing that only she, Ronald, and his lackey were all who remained. Most were likely on their way home, in their respective clubs. While some would have ordinarily been in the classroom at this hour, she was certain none wanting anything to do with Ronald and his group. He took a step towards her and then began to speak. "I am well aware, Miss Bright, that you have come all the way from distant Liberal to be here. It's not unusual for students to transfer from afar for family reasons. But I hear in your case you came to Kelford just to learn in these hallowed halls. I cannot help but deeply admire your spirit and thirst for knowledge. Pure theatrics, this one. At the same time, I worry about you. Brilliant you may be, but living alone in a far-off land must be a terrible, lonely and challenging affair. We all need someone to depend on in our lives, and that would be especially so in your situation. So, if you don't mind me saying so, Miss Bright, I believe you're in need of someone to look after you, to protect you." At last he shut up, but giving Ren a chance to respond. She scrutinized him closely. "So, in short, you'd like for me to join your circle of friends, correct?" Ronald's smarmy smile broadened. His father was senator in the Republic's parliament, meaning he held a significant amount of political power. His son used this to his full advantage ever since joining the academy. Ronald had used his father's name to form a faction of sorts among the students, forcibly building his reputation until he was the leading candidate for the student council president in the election stage in half a month's time. His goal, Ren assumed, was to bring the hottest talk of the academy into his faction to further secure his chances of victory. "I think you'll find that joining us would help you feel much more secure and at home here. Or perhaps you don't yet appreciate just how much of a difference having someone like me backing you would make on the life of an exchange student." "True," she mused inwardly. Being in a group of a high social standing would make it easier for her to gather information. If she could leverage his father's connections to build more of her own, that would pay itself in dividends in the days to come. The pompous boy had no way of knowing the actual circumstances that brought her to Aramis, but his proposal was in fact very beneficial to her. She returned his smile with a modest one of her own as she answered. "Oh, you're kind to think so much of me, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline." Clear, unambiguous rejection. Ronald's lips were still curled into a smile, but he could not hide the twitch in his brow, nor his lackeys hide their shock. They had, by all accounts, expected her to answer the opposite. "Are you sure you won't reconsider, Miss Bright? Surely someone as brilliant as yourself can see why accepting my offer would be in your own best interest. I fear if you don't, now you may well come to regret it." The last words were a hair shallower and deliberate to intimidate her. Yeah, knowing Ren's history, nothing can ever intimidate her. Ren, of course, was never going to fall for it. "I'll admit, it's a tempting proposal, tempting enough to inspire one to consider helping a certain someone win the student council election. If only that someone weren't you." "What did you just say?" The sudden taunt caught him completely off guard, resulting in a flare of irritation escaping him. Ren, for her part, was unruffled by the change. Yeah, and when you think about it, if he's running for student council president, and Ren is as popular as he feels she is, as she probably is, why won't she run for it? She's already in the center of attention, then being in a position of power like the student council president give her also more access to information. So maybe we're going that way. I imagine you don't need me to explain why, but I will, to be sure. I've been very aware that the threatening glares I always attract on the way to school every morning have been coming from all of you. They've been a constant in my life ever since just before the festival. All were flabbergasted by the statement, their silence confirming what she said to be true. She continued, "Now, you have every right to regard me with caution. I am well aware of how much I stand out despite my best efforts. Taking potential threats under your own wing is a strategically sound move too. However, that your target was so easily able to see through your scheme shows everyone here just how inept you really are. I have better things to do than assist someone so incompetent and small-minded." With a shrug and a sigh in a somewhat dramatic fashion, Ren stood before Ronald, his shoulders trembling with rage. "Good day to you all." Ren gave a courteous nod of acknowledgement before leaving the room, paying no mind to the wide eyes and open slack jaws she left behind. So Agit ended up getting pretty beat up from another one of Mom's crazy jobs she threw at him. We did get some good data out of it, but ouch. Your mom is always so funny. That night in the dormitory, Ren and Tita were engrossed in deep conversation through their laptops. Still the best of friends. But it's always the same old with all of you. I'm surprised there's anything of a kid left with how often you tell me she has him nearly facing death. You two are in a rut. I know something that could spice things up. Maybe try adding a little romance to the mix, like a couple of bright-eyed lovebirds we know? But we have agreed to go somewhere next week, so we're not in a complete rut. Well, isn't that something? The stairs to adulthood await you, my dear friend. Ren. Tita graduated from the branch campus in Arabonia just as Ren left for Calvert, leaving them no time to spend with one another in person. That wasn't ideal, of course, but from a hint of sadness came the habit of talking like this once a week, so they could stay in touch in each other's lives. They discussed anything, from the new lives and environments to the fruits of their research, occasionally stumbling into a serious topical matter or two along the way. Well, it sounds like a legal confrontation between the Verne Company and Epstein Foundation is inevitable at this point. I know. I can't help believe this is really happening. Both frowned at their screens. A recent development concerning the Calvarian industrial giant Verne Company had become a key source of concern for them of late. It began soon after Crossbell returned to normalcy after the Supreme Leader's takeover the previous year. Professor Erica Russell approached the Verne Company to propose that they join the West Sumerian Tech Union that she had been hard at work forming. And to no one's surprise, they refused. But before Erica and the rest of the engineers involved could even finish getting ready to go and change Verne's mind, something happened to make the Union the least of anyone's priorities. The independent development of a new generation of Orbmans, and the generation's long partner in this subset of technology, the Epstein Foundation, would not be a collaborator. The latter had been supporters of Zemuria's Orban development and orbital technology in general since their very inception. Battle Orbans were no exception to this. The Foundation had known their way around them since the very first model, drafting the incredible concept that had been used as a base ever since. Even the Reinfeldt Company before the Battle of Jormungandr had not thought to develop their Arcus models on their own, instead favoring to develop them in partnership with the Storreed Institute. The announcement was quite simply unprecedented, and it sent shockwaves throughout the industry. The Epstein Foundation was also less than pleased about being cast aside in this manner. While there were certainly legal concerns regarding who owned patent to this technology, the greater concern was that their stable position in the industry as a whole would now become unstable. They initially responded by attempting to resolve this through peaceful means, but when those attempts proved fruitless, it was reported that they were preparing for what could only be ugly international legal dispute. I'd say Verne has the upper hand in this ever makes it to court. Unlike their previous Remda Orbmans, this 6th generation is designed to set a whole new standard. All of its main features are packed with new tech, with some new features still being kept under wraps. I wonder what those are. What could they be trying to develop that's so important enough to ruin their relationship with the Foundation? Though I have heard about the government telling the Verne Company to focus more on weapons development. I have too. It sounds like they are planning to significantly revamp the military's weaponry. The official story is they are planning on slimming the military down, but if they're pairing that with the latest in weapon development, then they're still just as powerful, maybe even more so. As part of the war ceasefire agreement, Erebonia was required to downsize their military, bringing it more in line with that of Calvert's. Yet, if the Republic were to expand the capabilities of its military, this recently forced equilibrium in superpowers would be quickly broken. Whatever may be true, I've got a lot of questions I need answers to. Maybe it would be worth visiting the Verne Company headquarters in Basel at some point? You haven't learned anything more about where Professor Hamilton is at the moment, right? Well, nothing new or concrete at least. It sounds like she's continuing her research eastwards, but I haven't heard anything more specific than that. Mom and Grandpa haven't had any luck in contacting her either. I'm not surprised since that area isn't well connected, but it's unfortunate. She's a lot more reasonable than Professor Smith, so having her on our side would help a lot. Tita could only laugh. Yeah, there's lots of worrying stories going around now about PMCs and stuff like that. It makes me wonder if none of this would even be happening if she still was acting as an advisor for the Verne Company. The deeper into the conversation they went, the more Tita felt her spirits sinking. The political climate in Western Zemuria was unusually stable at the moment, with its nations basking in prosperity. But she could not shake off the feeling that this peace was built over rotting wood and that it could come crashing down with but the slightest provocation. This was becoming especially true in the tech world, as it had undergone rapid growth in recent years compared to other fields, so rapid in fact that no base could possibly sustain its sudden weight without cracks beginning to form. Try not to dwell on it too much, the worst case scenario, Tita. This piece might rest on a knife's edge, but there's still plenty we can do to preserve it. That's why I'm here right now, and that's also why you're working so hard too. We could find a million problems in the world if we wanted, but pessimism isn't going to make them go away, right? The words filled Tita with the right amount of comfort she needed in that precise moment. Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, Ren. They continued on, losing track of time as they talked well into the night. Before they knew it, the clock had struck 12. Well, it's getting really late, so I should probably be going. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Alright, good night, Tita. Night. Oh! Tita suddenly remembered something. The exclamation stopped Ren just as she was about to end the call. Oh, Estelle and Joshua told me to ask if you're doing okay in school. Those two always worry too much. You'd think I wasn't talking to them too. Well, she couldn't help but remember her interaction with Ronald after class, but Ren quickly drove the thought from her mind. It wasn't worth dredging up. Tell them they can rest easy. Everything's fine. Oh, good. They wanted me to let them know if you were being bullied so they could fly over and help. Ren could only sigh. Honestly, do they think I can't keep myself safe from a few schoolyard bullies? Actually, they said they were more worried about what you do to them than what they do to you. Very true. At her friend's silence, Tita could help but burst out laughing. I worry about you too, obviously, but they're probably right. How awful of you. Even if that were happened to be me, I wouldn't do half of what you're imagining. Not anymore, anyway. See? It's saying that kind of thing that makes people worry. I'm a lady now. I need the magnanimity to forgive the transgressions of others. I'm also trying to do what I can to avoid standing out too much at school. Hey, you can try, but I think that's always been a lost cause. Anyway, now I'm really going to go before I remember anything else. Say hi to Zin for me if you run into him. Well, I'm planning to go and see him when everything calms down here, so will do. I've been meaning to go and see someone else I've been indebted to in the past too. By the time the two of them had finished talking and ended the call, one day had given way to the next. It would be great to see Zin again. Definitely. The morning dawned yet another day of school. However, just as she left her classroom in the main building at the start of lunch, went to descend the staircase, she felt someone suddenly drawing near from behind her. Reflexively, she dodged out of the way. A female student then entered her field of vision. She had lost her balance, yet her expression a mix of fear and surprise. She passed through the spot where it had been moments before, but her momentum showed no signs of fading. If someone didn't stop her, she was going to start tumbling down the stairs. Ren was quickly to grab her and pull her close. She supported the girl's weight with one arm, with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Several students happened to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. Noticing that the girl's eyes were still unfocused, Ren gently addressed her. Are you alright? You aren't hurt, are you? Finally realizing the situation she was in, the girl, whose face had become quite red, quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. Yes, I'm okay. You're Ren Bright from the next class over, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping me. You're very welcome. But I would have to caution you from losing your composure like that next to the staircase. Do you have some really urgent business to take care of? The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered. Oh, nothing I can think of. It's weird, but even though it was probably my imagination, it felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Obviously, no one here would do that, so I must have just bumped into someone by accident. She thanked her rescuer again before disappearing into the distance. The situation she had deemed her imagination, however, lingered in Ren's mind. Yeah, with the cloaking technology we've seen in the first episode of Daybreak, yeah, someone can push somebody and not ever be noticed. So yeah, could it be real? Maybe we'll see. If I hadn't sensed something was amiss, both of us would have fallen down the stairs. We could have been badly hurt. Was it really just coincidence, or was it a deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? If it was the latter. She didn't have anything to support this theory, but with it came a familiar sensation. The feeling of malicious stares focusing on her from the shadows. It took surprisingly little time for her suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, Ren made for the classroom and began preparing for her next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. All of her textbooks had been glued shut with an excessive amount of adhesive. Try as he did to open them, it was a lost cause to get to even a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. The culprits behind the act were equally obvious. Not far from where Ren was sitting, Ronald Griffith and his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were snickering to themselves, and their eyes mockingly focused on Ren all the while. They are not even interested in hiding what they're like anymore. I'm sure at this point they want me to know who did it to intimidate me. Yeah, but showing Ren that you did it only puts a target on your head. Not smart at all. The latest development also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. What a pitiful sight they were, because she refused to join their group. Her existence was, in their eyes, now nothing more but a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for student council president. Yeah, but if Ren was so inclined to bomb his chances to become student council president, she could expose them for the things they're doing right now and get the entire student body going against them. So not smart for him to do, especially if it's so close to the election. They would stop at nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join, or shame her into lowering her popularity among the student body. It didn't matter that Ren had no interest in taking part in the election. After a further inspection, the state of her textbook, Ren's expression grew difficult to read. I think I can make them usable again, but not in what little time I have left before class. The bell soon chimed, the signal to start of her lesson. Ren left her textbook out on top of her desk, making no effort to open them throughout. Her instructor was, of course, less than pleased about this perceived slight against them, picking her to answer a question as an attempt to chide her poor behavior. "Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph aloud for us." Ronald and his friends let out a series of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighted at the thought of flustering Ren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. But what transpired in reality played out very differently from their fantasies. Without missing a beat, Ren did exactly as she was told, reciting the selected paragraph she had been asked to read word for word, and all while her textbook remained closed. Did you memorize the entire book? Even the instructor could not hide their surprise. But of course, as a student of Aramis Academy, I would never dare to compromise in preparing for my lessons. Ren responded with such grace that she of course drew in more sigh and coos of admiration from both her instructor and peers alike. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. The next incident came on Ren's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with the horde of other students and was just about to step into the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. She looked upward, noticing a portion of fencing surrounding the building rooftop was fallen directly above her. Other students noticed at the same time, letting out screams of horror and worries. They could do nothing about it. I could get out of the way easily if I wanted, but the fencing was over 2 arches in length. She could escape unharmed, but the other students around her would likely not. That was a risk she was unwilling to take. Grasping the battle ornament hidden in her bag, she cried out, "Airstrike!" A sphere of wind formed in response to her incantation, flying upward at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of sending the fence flying, it simply cancelled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and catch it with ease. This was no accident, the smell makes it obvious. It was a distinct scent of a liquid extracted from a certain plant monster. One of its properties was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in its application in certain solvents. This made the fence falling a deliberate action the perpetrator had been trying to disguise as an accident, and with Ren having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was more than clear. Again, she could feel the presence of those familiar hateful stares pouring into her from the shadows. But again, as well, they were not the only ones with eyes on her. Whoa! That was awesome! Did you see that? Is there anything she can do? Ren's quiet meditation was disrupted by a multitude of cheers and applause from all around her. As if she were a performer just about to leave the stage, she gave an elegant bow in response. This would not be the last time she endured harassment from Ronald's group, but each and every time they thought they bested her, she would handle him herself with exemplary skill, their effort only serving to make her more popular. The state of affairs continued with several more days before, seemingly out of patience, Ronald summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. He stood oppressingly before her, his legs behind him with the composure he attempted to feign before now replacing by plain vile anger. Let me give you to you straight, Ren Bright. You are an eyesore. Even that gentlemanly air he impersonated before was gone. Really now? Well, that's not a very polite thing to say to a classmate. Oh, don't try to act cute and innocent. I put too much damn time and mirror into building my position up at this academy, but who's always at the center of attention instead? It's you. It's always you. It's like you're deliberately trying to sabotage my chances of success, and that's the last thing I can afford right now. Which is ironically because everything he's doing to intimidate her makes her look better and him look way worse. If he had done nothing, nothing would have happened, and he would still be in the run of success instead. So yeah. How the mighty can fall without even acknowledging it. The more livid Ronald became, the more unruffled Ren was in turn. Oh, you're only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and over again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over again, she would not have received nearly as much attention. This being pointed out caused Ronald to return an audible thud of frustration. Oh, who cares about how it happens? The point is that this has gone on long enough, so I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? Ronald seemed to present some of his initial cool from when they first talked as he answered. Oh, I mean something very simple. You just want to come to school until the election is over. And if I refuse? To this he raised a hand, and in response his lackey stepped forward to surround her. The boys were unusually well built for their age, showing off their hulking forms in hopes of intimidating her. Refusing is not an option, I'm afraid. If you aren't going to oblige me willingly, we will just have to make it so you can't come to school for a while. His lackeys cracked their knuckles and dramatically to clarify their leader's intent. If you want to make bad choices, you're just making an even worse one. Well, that's no good. I think we both know that would constitute a grave violation of school rules. Something about her inflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear, further fueling their desire to dominate the situation. No one's watching a place like this, and even if someone did happen to see, my father's a politician. He can make it go away. If they don't willingly choose to ignore what they saw in the deference to my position, that is, everyone at this academy seems to already know their place, you see. Everyone except you. His smile then was so unpleasant that a sigh escaped Ren. I think you're the one who doesn't know your place. I don't want to be rough with him after what Tita said, but he needs to be taught a good hard lesson. Ronald continued on, obvious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. Now, do I say? His lackeys drew closer, readying to seize her. I'll keep it mild, but I still want this to hurt for them. Just enough to set them on the right track. I don't think Estelle and Joshua would object to that. But just as she was about to act... Stop this at once! A girl's shout could be heard from the direction of the school building. She was, of course, not shouting at Ren. The girl she saved from falling down the stairs, of course. Oh, and you are? Ronald was visibly irritated. Though the girl appeared to be visibly nervous, she continued to stand her ground. Oh, I didn't mean to listen in, but I couldn't help but overhear what was happening here. You can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong. The girl stepped forward till she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from the schoolyard bullies. As she did so, the light revealed sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered much like the sunrise shine above. Ren recognized her to be a first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her own. They weren't close to one another. At most, they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the hall. She always seemed like a quiet, polite young woman with a good upbringing, however, not the type whose eyes would glow with resolve as she put her well-being on the line for someone else. Ren was surprised by this, as was Ronald, though he was less than impressed. He never fathomed that another student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that her resistance was little more than a brave front. With excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he grew a sadistic smile and addressed her. "Is it now? Well, how fortunate for me that I have you to show me the error of my ways." "Ren can wait. You're first year, I assume. I'm going to need to give you a lesson on just how right and wrong works in our society." Upon his signal, his lackeys shifted to surround the new target over Ren. She began to tremble as danger closed in on her, but still, she did not move. "Oh, don't you dare!" This time it was Ren who spoke up. "I'll give you what you want, so don't you dare touch her." "But..." "Oh, you sure about that?" She wasn't planning on that response, but Ronald was more than happy to have his win in any form. "I'll stay away from school for a while. That's what you want, right? But then you..." The experience of studying abroad has been rather tiring for me, so maybe I do need some rest." Ren's voice was gentle in an attempt to assuage the kind girl's concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at victory, laughing heartily with all the glee of a spoiled child. "Good. Now everyone knows their place here. I see no reason to harm either of you now that I've got what I want. Consider yourself lucky that I've decided to let you go." Ronald turned away and made to leave, his lackeys following suit. "Good day to you then. When we next meet, this school will be mine." And then he was gone. With only the girls left behind the school building, the younger of the two looked up at her senior, concern welling in her expression. I really am alright. You're very kind to worry." Ren's smile was one of genuine kindness. From then on, Ren did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as the official reason behind her absence. The students then gathered in the Academy's auditorium several days later for a long-awaited student council election. Erebus Academy as a whole played great importance on the autonomy of its students, and as such the student council exercised an unusual amount of power. It also weighed upon them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the sole planner for the Academy's festival, a symbol and celebration of spring and capital. This, however, also led to the position being a major status symbol, even long after graduation. All of this was why a large number of students put their names forward to become the student council president every year. Yet, this year, the great majority of the most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and the others associated with him on the ballot. I couldn't exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald and his supporters sat in the rest area, chuckling among themselves at the whole affair. Perhaps his name wasn't the only one in the ballot, but none of the others had done any certifiable campaigning, meaning his election was positively assured. Yeah, and we all know where this is going. I can't wait. Eventually the time came for him to give his speech. It was a compelling one. He played the part of a respectable young gentleman as he delivered it, speaking with that same silver tongue he inherited well from his father. There were some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as long as no one else had prepared a speech to give, this was not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Now, if you could turn your eyes to the screen he spoke of was at the back of the auditorium. This was a rather notable feature to have in a school building, to have anywhere, and was installed several years prior for use in lectures and to display recreational films. Other nations had yet to indulge in such luxuries, showing just how far ahead Calvert was in its technology. Up until then, students had used it to display photographs during their speeches, but Ronald intended to take it another step further. He wanted to share a promotional video, and not a simple makeshift self-produced one that might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather a professional work he paid a considerable amount of mirror for. Its quality was genuinely impressive. His victory was written in stone, but this, he knew, would cement it that much more. Convinced this was served as the perfect beginning to his ascension to the top of the social hierarchy, he started the video. The music number it played was rousing. Fitting what followed then was Ronald appearing on screen. "So, how much mirror do you want for supporting me? I can make it worth your while." What? The video playing before them was not the one intended. Rather than an inspiration show of what he could bring to the student body, it was a recording of him buying off one of his opponents just days before. A harsh whispering of confusion spread throughout the auditorium. The next clip played. "If you know what's good for you, you'll withdraw your candidacy right now, or the only thing you'll be presenting is a hospital bed." Next was an equally unexpected scene of Ronald intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. Someone out there had replaced his carefully prepared video with another. The initially hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice over them in an attempt to quell the situation. "This is a forgery! Someone is attempting to frame me!" But just at that moment, as if waiting for his cries of denial, a girl's voice resounded from the auditorium's entrance. "I'm afraid it is all entirely genuine." The voice rang out with wonderful clarity, charming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and flipped it back as he talked and walked slowly towards the stage. Bribing potential threats, blackmailing, threatening, and even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. You are guilty on every single count, Ronald Griffith. Before anyone could fully understand what was happening, this student was on the stage and staring Ronald down. All eyes were fixed upon this elegant figure. Indeed, without any effort at all, she had the air of a protagonist from some epic tale make her long-awaited appearance. "Damn it, Ran Bright, must you insist on getting in my way at every turn?" he growled through a sheet of sheer anger. In contrast, the recently absent Ran responded with a brilliant composure. "Oh, you were the one getting in the way of the fair running of this important election. Your countless crimes have been made a mockery of the whole process." Ran then turned from Ronald to the rest of the student body as she continued to list his crimes alongside the still-running video. Some elicited frowns, others sympathy, others complete silence, but by the time she was finished, all were united in a single overpowering emotion: anger. It brings me no joy to say this about a fellow student, but I'm afraid it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you do not deserve to even attend this prestigious academy, much less be the president of its student council. Similar censure from other students followed in rapid succession. "Yeah, she's right. Stop running our academy. You've gone too far." Ran's accusation wasn't the only reason for their anger. The students of Aramis had long loathed Ronald's oppressive behavior. They only hadn't spoken out before because they were afraid of his father's power. Now that they realized he could be stopped, their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald suddenly found himself at the center of a torrent of abuse. He looked to his lackeys for support, but even they refused to meet his gaze. It then dawned on him just how fragile all he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant, deep despair, and casting a glare of pure hatred toward Ren, Ronald hurriedly sprinted out of the auditorium. Only when he was completely out of sight did the air erupt with cheers of joy. In the end, addressing the aftermath of the election took long enough that by the time she left for the gate, it was already evening. Yet, even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she stepped off the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. How does this work? No one is going to interrupt us here, so how about you come on out? In response to her words, Ronald emerged before her for the first time since he ran away early in the day, and with 10 or so companions in tow. These men weren't his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They were clearly not students of the academy. More than likely, they belonged to some local gang. You don't keep very good company outside of school now, do you? With how they're dressed up, I assume you must be off to a party or something. I'm going to wipe that smug smirk off that face for good, Rembright. My dazzling future in politics were guaranteed, but now you're gonna ruin everything. What am I supposed to say to my father now? Oh, that's your problem, not mine. Or are you so small of a man that you can't own up to the consequences of your own mistakes? Not a second passed between his outburst and the manner in which he snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as vile. Oh, that's it. I don't care what it takes. You're going to pay for thinking you could cross me and get away with it. Have at her. There won't be any consequence for going too far. My father will see to that. The men sprung into motion upon Ronald's signal, but what followed made them doubt their eyes. If Ren pulls out her weapon, everybody would be stopped in their tracks, definitely. Ronald could not understand what just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. The second after he ordered his new lackeys to attack, Ren had procured and produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. This in itself was beyond comprehension, but it wasn't the last thing to be so. The scene was like a cat toying with a powerless cornered mouse, except in this shocking case Ren was the cat, and his men were the mice. They surrounded her at first, and yet all it took was a single swing of her conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse to the ground. In less than 10 seconds, their confidence had crumbled with their bodies. The mice made to scurry as fast as they could, but the cat gleefully gave chase. There were even moments where she let a few think they had gotten away, only for her to immediately close the gap between them. It was only after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious like the rest. Then she would seek delight in her next hunt. Like heavily sacked of potatoes, the men fell one by one, until only Ren and Ronald were left. This can't be happening. The young man was still struggling to come to terms with what he just witnessed as Ren stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Amateurs. Every last one of them. I thought I could at least have a little bit of fun. Oh, but don't you worry. I didn't actually slaughter them. She turned the gaze from the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In this moment, she was nothing more than a beast in human skin. Stay away from me. My father is in Parliament, you know. Try anything on me and you'll regret it. Her response was an expression of pure pity, tossing what appears to be a magazine at his feet. It's one of today's tabloids. You might find its contents relevant. What? At first he was baffled by this shift, but the second he peeked at the cover, his face went pale. Representative Griffith, suspected of bribery and connections to organized crime. Read the headline in a giant, punchy lettering. There's a whole special feature on Your Dearest Daddy, complete with evidence. It mentioned that the CID is going to be conducting an investigation as well, so this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. No. So visceral was his shock at the news that the simple word was all he could muster. Even then, Ren wasn't finished. So, now that he's been removed from the equation, I'll ask again, would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand, and a sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping over a rock and falling hopelessly on his backside. All he could do was watch as though she were the Grim Reaper, tears of snot streaming down his face. Be a doll and play with me, and then they'll understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her scythe above her head and ready to swing it downwards before realizing what she said. Oops, a grown woman wouldn't play with dolls, though, would she? And here I thought I could better control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with a feminine modesty at her slip-up. None of this was behavior befitting the proper lady she wanted to reflect. After composing herself, she turned her attention back to her prey, only to see he was already unconscious. Finished? As she left the park, a calm young man called out to her, "Oh, I certainly am." Ren met eyes with a brown-skinned young man, leaning comfortably against one of the trees. It was safe to assume he had witnessed the entire affair unfold. He glanced inside the park for a brief moment, before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. "You really are something." "In what way?" "Oh, in every way. Even if I was more struck by the hacking abilities of the famous Kitty than the combat prowess of the infamous Angel of Slaughter. Still hard to believe you managed to find dirt on his big wig dad that easily." Ren's response was matter of fact, showing no sign his praise had gone to her head. Well, most people just aren't cautious about cybersecurity as they ought to be. Understandable with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as this was when you're dealing with leading corporations and politicians at the top of the food chain. You made it sound like you've tried before. Oh, maybe I have. Ren's smile was both cryptic and darling. "I've been more impressed with you. You were quick to write a piece that's scathing while also finding me exactly the proof I needed." "I'm glad Grace introduced us." "Ah, that's the connection." "Oh, just doing my job." The man's name was Dingo, and he was a professional reporter for a tabloid. He was extremely capable at his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. After being introduced to one another by Grace Lynn, he and Ren made a deal with one another just a few days prior. The terms were simple. Dingo would provide Ren with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, and Ren would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crime. Both were now reaping the rewards of one another's success. Though I'll admit that I did get some help from a friend, he was none too pleased about being asked to look into a scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. "Oh? You just have all kinds of connections, don't you?" She did sense someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf while she was off school, but she wasn't sure who that someone was. This curious sensation regarding their identity remained as she continued the conversation. "You know, I'm surprised you didn't meet with any resistance in running that story. That just goes to show you how big of a fan the government was of Griffith. They left him alone because he didn't actively oppose the current president's party, but from the CID's perspective, this chance to take him down was about as good as it was going to get. That doesn't sound like something Miss Taito Master over there would do. I can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but oh well. Ha. Alright, so her... We knew that besides Zin, it was going to be someone else, right?" Dingo then made the curious observation. "I have to wonder why you went to such length to get rid of a small fry like him. He really bother you that much?" Ren glanced briefly at Ronald, still collapsed on the ground at the park, before shrugging her shoulders dismissively. "Not in the least. I didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. I only wanted to teach him enough of a lesson so he'd leave me alone, but..." It was then that the younger student who tried to save her came to mind. "I think the students deserve a much better student council president than him." She then let out the titter that was most refined. As Ren expected, delegations led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament while he resigned from Aramis Academy. The group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight as a result, bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in a long while. One thing, however, came about from this that Ren has not expected in the least. Here are all the documents related to the next month's budget. The Student Council new president accepted the documents from the blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs, perusing them straight away. After Ronald dashed from the auditorium on the day of the election, most of those in his group who put down their name dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting still took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 70% of the votes cast were disqualified. This was because they were all in favor of someone who never had put her name on the ballot. Ren bright. Aramis Academy was known for how little its staff interfered with the many liberties it gave its students, but this time the staff was clearly concerned that dissatisfaction with Ronald was going to present dire problems in the future. The teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Ren, and in the face of such fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position of Student Council President. Yes, and this is the result we all expected, most definitely. None of her duties posed a challenge to her, but by accepting it, she had completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. I wonder if this is how Thor's Branch Campus' first Student Council President felt when he was elected. Even I couldn't believe it when Tito told me. Alright, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll just have to make use of this as best as I can. Sunlight beamed into the student council room. The blonde-haired girl and two of her friends struggled with the new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open to random talk and the occasional grumble, a thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries, the problems arising from rapid technological development, the society's next move, the ominous wind of change blustering over Calvert, but despite all those, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. What say we get this work done so we can celebrate with a tea party, huh? The arrival of spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There was nothing particularly spectacular about this time, it was just another ordinary, beautiful, bright afternoon. An Unconventional Student. The end. Yeah, a much better story than the first one was, most definitely. There we get the second line. And the third story. Forward sword in hand. But considering how long these stories are, we're gonna say forward sword in hand for another episode. I was thinking that maybe this one would have been shorter than Rean's story, and then we could do both at the same time, but I think it's better to just keep it separate, and then if people wanna read about it through a video, they can use mine if they want to. Not have to, want to. So for now, I wish you a great night, morning, day, wherever you are, and if you're still here, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and be back next time for another piece of this daydream forward sword in hand. So until then, bye bye.